So probably my longest lasting hobby has been writing. I think that was my original hobby, was writing. It's one of my first memories of writing a story was whenever my dad, he was emailing my sister, and he asked if I wanted to say something, and so I just made up a cute little story thing off the top of my head, and just really loved story writing. After that, he introduced me to Word document, and I started practicing writing on Word document. That was a lot of fun. I wrote all kinds of little stories. So probably the best story that I wrote as a kid was in sixth grade. I wrote The Will of the Farm Over the Great Hill. It was a story that I wrote for my friend for her birthday, because we had been playing with the video cameras, and we had been planning and writing skits for our little video camera things that we did. But we ended up not doing this one, but this story I converted it from a kind of skit script into a little miniature novel. After reading things like The Hunger Games and stuff, I decided to do my own versions of fantasy and try fantasy trilogies. So I did a couple of little things with that. My favorite fantasy person that I made up was a girl named Lyra, and I did a lot of little stories with her. She was one of my favorite characters. My original character, my very first character I ever created, was a redheaded girl named Jenny Louise, with her friend Mary and her other friend Megan, and then her arch nemesis Rebecca. So that was a pretty fun little story. I'll have to see if I can dig those up, but my dad had blank cards that were like greeting cards, but they were all blank on the outside and the inside, and so I would draw and color in and make a cover, and then would print off of Word document some of the papers that I had for my stories, and then would staple them all together. So I'll have to see if I can locate those sometimes. I haven't seen those in years, but they were my original little storybooks. I went through a phase where I really liked to get pictures off of Google Images, and I would use them as prompts or character profiles. I used Shailene Woodley a lot. Like, I really liked that actress a lot and thought she was so pretty. So I would take pictures off of Google Images and use the pictures for my different stories, which usually I took celebrities' pictures. I also went through a little bit of, I would write little devotionals. So, like this book right here, I wrote as a teen, and it was kind of a short little devotional book with little different devotionals for the day. This one was a co-write, so me and a friend of mine decided to write a story together, and so we got together and typed up. I did the typing, but me and her would talk with each other and discuss what we wanted our little stories to be. This one, The Princess Chronicles, there's one random night that I stayed up all night typing up random stories, so I don't even remember what these were, but I had just kind of stayed up all night one night and just wrote a bunch of random little stories. This one's one of my romance novels, so I did a lot of the different little story writes there. Oh, there was one time that me and my sister, we had decided to collaborate. It was years and years ago, but she drew like little characters that I described for her. So I described these characters, and then she would draw them for me because I was really bad at drawing. So that was pretty fun, collaborating with her as my illustrator and me as the author. I also am a big time journaler. This is my current journal that I've got most of my COVID type journaling in it. I've kept a journal since I was 6 years old, I think. And then this journal is one of my really pretty journals, so I only write in it on very, very special occasions where I just kind of have a little random thought or something that I decide that I want to write down. So it's not really a day-to-day journal. It's more of just a time where I think of something and just write it down. My most recent one is, I do not believe that God's power to save is limited. His grace is not like the Titanic, where there were more people than lifeboats. Rather, God's grace is like when the world is in a sinking ship. There are more than enough lifeboats, and no one perishes for lack of lifeboats. Some perish because they go to sleep after ignoring the alerts to enter lifeboats. Some are at the ship's bar drinking their senses away. Some are merely strolling the deck unconcerned. So that's one of my entries there. Probably my favorite of the stories that I've written that are fictitious is The Will of the Farm Over the Great Hill. The spelling and grammar is really bad, and some of the narration really cringy, but it's actually one of my best storyline plots. So I went through a phase there for a while too, where I was writing some poems here and there, which I still occasionally write poetry. But it's been a while since I've sat down and really done a book. That's something I'll need to get into. I'm going to try to start writing some murder mystery novels. That would be fun, as much as I love Forensic Files and Murder, She Wrote and other shows like that. So those are some of my writing archives of the past.